Good afternoon, my friends with Parenting Across Color Lines. I come to you in a different format today because of all that is going on in our world around us. So today, I want to talk to you guys about several things. One, I want to talk about branding. I want to talk about family roles and values. I know you have some creative assignments that Jessica has come up with for you, and so this will kind of augment that, shall we say. Let's begin with the idea of family branding. This is an idea that I started talking with families about several years ago. It got me thinking. You know, Levi Strauss and Coca-Cola are brands. And when you think of Levi's and when you think of Coke, you identify certain attributes to them, to that brand. Well, families can do the same thing in terms of this is how we as a family operate. This is how we do things. This is how we are. This is how we define ourselves as operating as members of the family. And eventually roles and values will just, shall we say, flow out of this talk here. But branding, take some time and look at your family and think, what would be a brand for my family? What might that brand look like? Use examples like Levi's and Cokes and Pepsi's and all of those. And what do you think of when you start to think of those products and start to attribute that to your family? Think that, we're kind of like Coke, but we might be a little bit better than Coke because we are family name, whatever we are. And so that's what I want you to start with, the idea of branding your family. What do you stand for? Now, to help you with that come some other things. We're going to talk a little bit about roles in families. Now, some of this I'm going to be borrowing from some research that's out there by Rollins, Joseph, Lloyd, Welch, and Weld. And it's called Some Roles Children Play in Their Families: Scapegoat, Baby, Pet, and Peacemaker. Let's begin with the scapegoat. The scapegoat is a family member who gets a lot of negative stuff, attributes directed towards them. They are at sometimes pushed beyond what they can handle, what they can manage in terms of these things continually coming at them. A lot of times it's from parents, but then sometimes other siblings feed right into that. Now, when you're pushed beyond your endurance, that's when problems start to come up with the role of scapegoat. You start to see that all this attention is directed to them that is negative, causes them to start to act out in some ways. Often the scapegoat will act out in negative behaviors, negative ways. I'll show you how bad I am because everybody says this is how I am, so this is what I'm supposed to do in the family, the role I should play. We want to move away from seeing someone in the role of a scapegoat. But there are three other roles we need to look at as well. And I think when we all come back together, this may be something that I can look at a little bit more in depth, but I only have so much time and so much video, so I got to go with what I have. Next one is the baby. Now, the baby is the one who the family, the parents attribute things like dependence, weakness, vulnerability, need to be protected, immaturity, greediness, and they're almost insatiable in terms of what they want because everybody keeps giving the baby everything they think the baby needs. Now, family members often attribute to this by continuing to see that person, that child, that family member in the role of the baby. And so that can often contribute to immature aspects in the individual. Next, we have the pet. the family pet. Now, I'm not talking about little Grover the dog. I'm talking about the pet is a special child showered with love, attention, praise, even when not deserved. So much so that they get used to that. Uh, they uh, they are the savior in some cases for the family, in terms of someone some parents might think of. Now the child responds because they like this by being charming. Because, hey, you giving me all I need. All I got to do is be charming, and I can get these things from people. I can get this love, this attention. Now, the problem is as they get older and they still fall into that need for attention, that's when struggles start to take place in their lives. Now we come to the final one, and that's peacemaker. The peacemaker. Here, these individuals often get in the middle of conflicts in the family and start to look at how we can bring some sense of peace here. Parents might be arguing, and the peacemaker might find a way to kind of maybe settle them down or something. The researchers attributed several things to them. They said that they often suppress their emotions. They suggest pleasant alternatives when the expression of negativity starts to center around the family. And they often overfunction in their role as a child to be that peacemaker for the family, and in some cases for the parents, because sometimes they are the ones that can hold the family together in terms of when it gets crazy out there. So these are some roles that we typically play in our families. I want you to think about those roles that I've talked about, and think about, are you in any way placing these kinds of roles onto your children? As I said, when we come back together, this will give you some talking and thinking points for while we're away. But when we come back together, let's talk about this idea of roles in the family, and how are you doing this? And are you doing it in any way that is creating a negative impact on the youngsters that you're raising? The final area that we want to explore today is family values. Family values. The idea of what we value as a family. There's several things here I'm going to go over with you, and start to think of these in terms of your family, and then I'll give you a challenge at the end. Family values can center around social values. In other words, social values consist of things like peace, justice, freedom, equality, bettering our community. Some examples of a value like this would be being responsible and courteous to others in your interactions, being honest with others, participating in teamwork whenever possible. Political values. Ooh, this could be a tough one. Although we can be liberal, conservative, moderate, there are things that sort of go along with that. And let's look at what some of these values pull out of us. Patriotism, treating everyone as equal regardless of ethnicity, being open-minded to new things, following rules, the idea that America is a land of limitless opportunities, and as such, there is a duty to act as an example to other countries. That's our political values. Within a family, take the idea of treating everyone in a particular way. Do we treat everyone equal within the family? Are we open-minded as a family in terms of having the discussions? Religious values is our next one. Religious values are the idea of how we are as individuals in terms of our religion. Now, it doesn't just stop there, because we can show religiousness as a value by showing compassion to others, treating others as one would like to be treated, continually learning and growing both spiritually and intellectually, being modest in our relationships with others, and being respectful and nonviolent when engaging other people. Finally, there's the work value. Or I should say, not finally, because there's one other one after that. The work value. How does your family value engaging in work? And as you engage in work, how do you do it? So things come up out of that, like always doing your best at work, working in a team, working as a team as the family, uh, finding opportunities to express ideas and creativities, being proud of what we're able to achieve, making education a priority, keeping in mind that part that your job plays in society as an overall, and how you treat coworkers, family members, fellow students, customers, the list goes on and on and on. Those center around work values. Recreational values, how we play. How we play. Recreational values have to do with how we engage in fun activities. So, as parents, do we engage in family game nights? Do we take vacation, spend time together outside playing with each other? Provide unstructured playtime, and allowing and encouraging family members to pursue interest. Now, how do we make this list for our families? We want to first of all sit down, and we want to make sure we got time when we sit down to kind of come up with this. And here's some tips as we sit down. Know right away it might be a little bit difficult for some of these things to kind of come into play, come into mind. But think of what you do as a family and see if values kind of come out of that. Also, consider writing a motto or a mission statement that addresses your core family values, whether it's peacefully resolving conflicts, being kind, loyal, working hard, playing hard, having fun, whatever it may be. But finally, talk with your family and what things are important to the various family members, because those are things that come into play when you think of family values. Now, as I said, you have some assignments out there to engage in while we're away from each other. I want you to look those over and see what you can do, what answers you come up with. We may have to do something like this again in May. If we do, we will. But when we come back together, we'll talk about some of the things we've learned in our time away from each other, because we're always learning even though we're not together as a group. We're always experiencing even though we're not together as a group. And we're having interactions with other people that impact us. So keep that in mind as you go on your journey. You all be safe out there. Like I said, there'll probably be something like this that'll come down the pipeline next month if need be. But we will get back together because our brand is we are parenting across color lines, and we help make a difference. You take care.